Greetings, everybody. We're multiplying. I'm Rob Bernacki of Island Top Team. This is Stefan Kesting of GrappleArts.com, purveyor of fine jiu-jitsu instructional material. This is Matt Kwan. He's one of my students, training partners. He's also been instrumental in our development of this Leglock system that we use. He's the head instructor at On Guard BJJ in Vancouver. If you find yourself on the mainland and you want to learn fantastic leg locks, he's the guy to go to. He's been the main individual who's been proving some of our techniques, some of our concepts in competition. So you can check out some great footage of him on YouTube. And of course that's Rory, my hetero life partner, who's also assisted in the development of the system by sacrificing his heels for my experimentation. And we're going to get into some transitions from leg attacks to upper body attacks, passing, sweeping, back control, that sort of thing. In the event that you're not able to finish on a good leg locker, we're going to change direction and try to use some non-dark arts, some non-band style jiu-jitsu. Our first transition is going to come from the standard Ashi position, and we've gone through in previous volumes how your opponent is generally going to try to turn to the weak side and rotate, mobilize their hips, dip their knee. And because we can predict that, we're going to be able to come up either on a sweep or on a back attack, depending on our partner's insistence on staying on top. So in this position, the partner's going to start to turn, and once their knee comes through this space, and we're going to want to hold on to the heel. When I hold on to the heel, I'm preventing him from extracting all the way. You can also transition occasionally to reaching to the knee if you need a little bit of extra security. In this position, as long as my partner is in base, I can start to come up and attack the back. So I'm going to sit up, still holding the knee, and I'm going to control the far leg, here, and the far hip. So I'm going to come over top. At this point, you could come up on a calf slicer. You might notice we didn't cover calf slicers in this instructional. It's not a highly reliable finish across the board against different body types, against experienced leg lockers. So we're trying to give you, the most effective stuff. We've got a system that's based around maximizing your percentage of finishing, and that just does not include the calf slicer. So I'm going to extend my hip backwards. My right foot is in base. I'm still holding the hip. I'm still holding my partner's leg. I'm going to extend my hip backwards to kick free, and then I'm going to rock up into base, still holding my partner's hip. I'm going to transfer my hand now. Placeholder system, as we went over, credit to Ryan Hall for that term, as we went over in our previous volume, the BJJ formula. I'm switching from my right hand gripping to my left hand gripping. I'm going to come up and grab the shoulder. I'm going to insert my hook. Come up to the seat belt. Break my partner down by inserting my foot behind the end of the lever, rotating his leg, changing his base. Come down onto the strong side back attack. And you can look up our back attacks volume if you want some information from here. And part of that volume is going to include the rear naked choke, which is going to look like this. Our next option from here, and again, this is not up to you, this is up to your opponent, but if Stefan turns, rotates, dips his knee through, I make this grip, and because he realizes that I'm now going to start to come up and take his back, he's going to choose to sit to his butt. In this case, and just turn to face me completely, in this case, I'm coming up, finishing the sweep, hopefully coming up on passing, but against a good opponent, you're most likely to end up in the guard. So let's just go through that again. This is one of those, again, some people really fight like crazy to stay on top, in which case you take their back. Some people, most jiu-jitsu guys frankly, are going to rotate to their butt and concede the position. This is most often going to take the form of a sweep against people with a little more wrestling background, against people competing under certain rule sets. ADCC, for instance, people are going to pop up to their feet all the time. So the back attack, which we just covered, will be more likely. So again, as I get to this position, he turns, dips his knee, I grab. We're just coming up, following up on the sweep, and getting into our guard passing.
Well, you have your 2 points, and now you can stall for 8 minutes, and you win.
And be declared the greatest grappler in the world. All right, so the back take now again from a different angle. As Stefan rotates out of the position, extracts his knee, I grip the heel, come up, grab the leg, grab the hip. I'm going to extract backwards, come up into base. Still holding the end of the lever, still pinning this lever down with my shin. I'm going to transfer to my near hand on the hip, reach up, grab the shoulder, insert my hook. If I still need to here, if my partner's insisting on staying in this position, my leg's going to come around, access that lever, that's going to twist him down to the ground. Make my seat belt, catch the rear naked choke. And by the way, you don't need 2 hooks to finish, but if you need your 4 points, certainly once you get here, get your points, and then choke the guy just in case he's got some weird voodoo magic and can't be finished. but Stefan can. It's just going to be a quick troubleshooting thing. When my partner turns away and dips his knee, I'm controlling the lever to this hip. If this is all I control, there's no way I'm going to be able to climb on the back. So I'm going to use my leg as a pendulum to sit up, and I'm grabbing the far hip so that I now have rotational control. If I manage to get here, Stefan shouldn't be able to roll back to his butt. Right? Go ahead and try to move. I can block.
Oh, no.
I'm keeping you stuck here. As I extend my hip out, there's a moment where he could, but I'm going to immediately make my knee heavy, come up on top, still preventing him from rolling. I have rotational control directly of his hip. I'm going to switch so I've got rotational control of his hip. I'm going to reach up and grab his shoulder so I have cross-body rotational control. I can now insert my hook, pull my partner out of base, hip escape, and attack the back. Okay, we're going to go through a couple of transitions now from the 411. One of the disadvantages of being tall, other than the fact that you look ridiculous in certain clothing, and one of the advantages of being short, other than the fact that you have better hair, is going to be the fact that it's more difficult for me to pull off a leg lock against somebody who's skilled in the position. So if I've got Matt in the 411, let's just start on this side. And I just recognize that he's good enough and his legs are shorter enough that I'm going to have a hard time finishing. I may choose to transition to the back, and we're going to go through that in a couple of different ways. First one is just going to be from the standard 411. So if I decide that I no longer want to pursue leg lock attacks, I'm going to insert my knee and start to bring my partner away from me a little bit, almost like I'm coming up into the leg drag. And my goal is to try to make sure that I can grab this arm in some way. I'm actually just going to switch to the other side here. So I'm starting to come up, and I want my partner to think that they can turn and escape. Now, normally he would have freed this leg and he'd be doing this kind of motion. So let's rewind for a second. Because I'm still holding his leg as he starts to come up, I'm going to be able to hook his arm and transition through into a seatbelt on this side. I'm now releasing that leg. I'm still keeping a little bit of control, curling my heel in, so I decelerate or reduce positive acceleration if you want to be scientifically accurate. So I've reduced positive acceleration as I transition into the seatbelt on this side, coming up into a chair sit and finishing the back kick from there. So one more time from a slightly different angle. I've got the 411. My opponent is a little bit too good for me. He starts to turn away. I might slow him down a little bit here. And as he turns, I capture his arm. You can perform the arm drag motion, or you can just maintain a 2-on-1 grip, holding the wrist and the point of the elbow, transfer by you, and you can make your seatbelt this way. But one of the advantages of being tall, you may not be able to do this against a taller opponent, but I can, is you can get all the way to this side of the seatbelt, kick free with your leg work, walk out, sit your partner up, set your hook in on this side, and attack the back. So depending on the length of your limbs and on how your opponent turns, you can make the seatbelt on either side, extract your legs, and come up on the back. Our next transition is going to happen from that grounded Kanabasami position where we're normally trying to tilt someone or do a couple other cool things that we've done in the past. But in this case, we're going to assume that we can't move our partner in any way where we're able to continue attacking or destabilize them, transfer their center of gravity, affect their base. We're just stuck on the bottom. So what we're going to look to do, again, he's got his knee down, he's setting, put this knee back down. Yeah, there we go. He's setting good base. I'm going to try to gain control. Let's actually turn a little bit more this way. I'm going to look to gain control of this arm by punching an underhook with my left elbow and transfer my other arm in so that I can gain some kind of 2-on-1 control. Normally, if somebody's just in alignment and I try to do this, it's going to be really difficult. But if I'm pursuing that tilt motion that we did before, my partner's going to have to spread his arms out. So I don't just lay here and take it. I'm going to be active with my hips. I make him extend his arms. That allows me to punch my underhook, make this X behind his arms, and I'm covering the top of his arms so he can't just air guitar out. Now I make my 2-on-1 grip on the back of his elbow, or on the back of his elbow and on his wrist. Once I have this control, I'm going to look to get up into base on my elbow. I'm unlocking the leg entanglement, and I'm coming up onto my elbow, bringing my chest against my partner's shoulder. I'm using my right foot behind me for base and my right elbow for base. I'm now going to let go of his arm, come around, either grab the hip for a spiral ride type motion or come all the way up and reach for a motorcycle grip. You'll notice that my partner is usually going to still be in this alignment. At this point, I'm going to come into base with my right foot. I'm going to pursue the back through the crucifix. Keeping my hand here, I'm going to throw my leg in front and allow my shin to come to the mat while I get my seatbelt. I'm going to start to tilt my partner back towards me. At this point, my right foot is blocking his leg so that I can extract my left leg, and we end up in the crucifix right here. Let's turn a little bit more to get some good coverage. I'm going to control the motorcycle grip in the crucifix. I'm going to reach up and I'm going to control his wrist. When I perform the crucifix, I want to get my ankle as close to the bend of his bicep forearm as possible so that I can bring my other leg over top and place the inside of my calf against the sole of my foot by that big toe, incorrect alternative medical fact bunion. Place my foot on the ground. You can finish right here, hip escaping and elevating his elbow while driving his wrist to the ground is going to create a kimura. However, I would recommend also, let's just turn a little bit more, and let's just remove my leg from this equation. I would recommend trying to dig for the rear naked choke. There's some methods that we've come to favor recently, which involve keeping our chin against our partner's neck and digging with this kind of arrowhead or with the joint of the thumb underneath to finish. If you don't favor the crucifix, it doesn't really matter. Once we end up in this position here, I can seatbelt, throw this leg over, kick out, and simply move into more conventional back attacks, however you might choose to take the back. But I highly recommend playing with this transition to the crucifix if you can make it happen. If your partner is really hiding their arms, come back onto your knees. If your partner is really trying to hide their arm, they're going to be very easy to seatbelt and tilt so you won't be able to do the crucifix, in which case, again, rocking all the way to here, stomping down on the lever to remove, inserting your hook in the process, bringing them back to the other side would be how you would attack the back. Okay, one more time from a different angle. I'm using this leg hook to try to break his base, try to tilt under him, that's causing him to post. My elbow is going to poke through. When I look for an underhook, I don't reach my arm in like this. I can still be wizard relatively effectively here. I don't want to take that risk. So I'm going to use my elbow, wedging underneath and bringing him forward, bringing my arm inside, ducking him behind, getting my 2-on-1 control. I now undo the control here as I come up into base, grabbing my partner's lat or hip, keeping the grip on the wrist. I'm going to come up into base, settle down. I'm making sure that I control the wrist as I transfer the crucifix. I don't want to let go and then hope that I can get him. I keep the control, I shoot the crucifix, I come down, I can make a Kimura grip. I'm controlling the wrist. I'm going to try to extract my foot by pushing on his far leg. Bring the point of my shin as it connects to my foot right at the ankle joint into the groove of his bicep, still controlling his wrist. I'm now going to throw my leg over top, and I'm turning so that my big toe is hooking around onto my shin bone. This is as restrictive a lever-based rotational control as I can muster, with my legs leaving both my arms free, either for Kimura-style attacks or for digging on the choke. But I'm always going to test out this submission first. Again, we use it as a control, but it's also a freebie as far as I'm not taking any risks. I'm not going out of position to attempt it. I'm going to place my foot on the mat. I'm going to hip escape and try to drive his wrist to the floor as I drive back. So again, I'm using base. I'm not just flailing about with my legs. I'm placing my foot on the mat. I'm abducting my hips back on a roughly 45-degree angle from his shoulder as I push my leg down against the top of his wrist, against his radial and ulnar bone, as I lift my hip. It's basically a Kimura with my legs. If I feel like I can't finish on this, or if I'm just using this for the purpose of distraction, I'm now going to dig for the rear naked choke. This is going to apply to any rear naked choke that you go for. If I use my chin against the side of his neck, I'm going to restrict him from absorbing the force I'm generating with my hand. If I attempt to dig on a rear naked choke here, because his head is so mobile, he can fight me constantly. So I'm going to try to bring my jaw in. So I'm creating, again, a frame or a wedge against the side of his neck so he can't go anywhere. I'm going to take this hand, put my thumb behind my finger. We call this the arrowhead. So I'm trying to take this arrowhead and I'm trying to punch it through the side of his windpipe, getting underneath the jaw. So I set underneath the jawbone, I pry this open, move to the one-handed rear naked choke, and finish from there. So again, I know there's a lot going on in that technique, from the 411 to coming up on the back to the crucifix to the rear naked choke. This is a recent innovation that we've been having a ton of success with at my academy. I've taught it a little bit in a couple of workshops. Everyone that's tried it out, particularly the dig mechanic for the rear naked choke, has found a ton of success with it. It's absolutely changed my game. It's made it so that it's incredibly difficult for me to fight off rear naked chokes against my my better students. So please try it out, see how it works for you. I think it uses proper body mechanics and some of the frame and lever stuff that we try to conceptualize throughout our jiu-jitsu. I think it uses it really well, and I hope it'll advance your game. Even if you don't do any of the leg lock stuff we do, hopefully you'll get some value out of this technique. All right, our next transition to upper body attacks, passing, that sort of thing, is going to come from the 50-50 guard, which is a closed circuit leg entanglement. As we've discussed, it's an equation. Both of us have roughly the same options from here. Generally speaking, we're both going to be hiding our legs. Certainly if we're in any rule set that permits heel hooks, we're going to be hiding our legs. I'm going to look for an opportunity to disengage. This pass, by the way, I'm not going to pretend otherwise, this comes directly from Ryan Hall's 50-50 material. Please, if you want to learn about the 50-50, check out his instructional. It's fantastic. I've been using this pass for almost a decade, and it's really been reliable for me anytime I've ended up here. So assuming that I end up in the 50-50, you'll notice Stefan's in base. There are a few things I can do to try to knock him down. One of them is to block his arm and push him. Sometimes I'm going to be able to just put my feet on him and push him over. It doesn't really matter how you get there, but you're going to have to get your opponent temporarily on his back. I'm now going to unlock whatever configuration, whether it was an ankle cross or whether it was a triangle. I'm going to unlock that, transfer my leg to the other side, and immediately restrict his hip. In the modern leg lock game, this is a risk if you do it wrong, because I'm putting myself temporarily in outside ashi. All right, so if I don't get a good strong curl with my heel and I don't set myself into good base, if I'm just dangling this leg, I'm going to be fighting off a leg entanglement. But again, if we apply proper principles, I bring this foot back, I bring this foot back. When he tries to pull my leg, it shouldn't move.
It's a very solid position.
Exactly. If I've got a frame here and it's bearing weight, just like we discussed in all of our other defensive alignments, when I manage to restrict my opponent's hip and I manage to put myself into base, I can prevent him from pulling my leg out. I have to do this quickly. I don't have time to dig around. Heel tucks in, I come up into base, I withdraw my leg, and I get heavy on my knee. I'm going to drive my hip down onto the end of the lever, breaking the 50-50, and moving myself into side control. Again, I've used this all over the place, pretty damn reliable. If you're stuck in the 50-50, I would absolutely recommend trying it. And if you understand the defensive concepts that we've addressed so far, even if you do find yourself going from the 50-50 to the outside ashi, let's say Stefan does manage to start working on my leg, we're in a weak side outside ashi configuration. I'm going to have a pretty easy time hopefully extracting my leg, right, separating his feet, accessing these levers, denying him the control of my knee, extracting, and now I can come up into, like I don't even know really what to call this, but it's almost a leg drag, it's almost an outside ashi. We'll call it a leg drashi. I don't know. Push down on the lever, attempt to pass from here. So like I said, even if you do take that risk, as long as you're educated on how to take it, it's still going to be something that's worth your time to develop. All right, our next transition into passing is, I think, probably the best transition into passing from leg entanglements, which is from the cross ashi position into the leg drag. So I almost exclusively use this from this position. I almost don't bother with trying to finish the leg lock. So if I find myself in the cross ashi position, either having entered it directly, or most often having done some kind of attempt from the standard ashi and cross the leg over, I'm going to start to extend this leg and drive my knee on the inside towards my partner's ribs. I don't want to start to come up on a leg drag. Again, we went over this in our top game volume about how to control this lever to the hip to rotate my partner's hip away during a leg drag, but it bears repeating. If I just try to come up on a leg drag like this, I have not affected my partner's posture, structure, or base. I am cosmetically in a leg drag, but he's able to bring this leg into play, high leg, push me away, and reset his guard. I'm not leg dragging anyone good under these circumstances. So when I decide to pursue the leg drag, ideally I'm going to control this ankle. Sometimes that won't be possible because he's going to have his foot in base. Doesn't really matter, as long as when I bring this foot out and start to shift my partner away, I'm driving my knee into his abdomen and flaring my foot out, accessing the end of his lever, the end of this lever, not his lever. Geez, that's something else entirely. He's not going to be able to turn his hip back into me as I build my base and continue to push him to face away from me to come into the leg drag. That would be how I would advise you to do it. I think it's the most biomechanically sound, the most conceptually sound. So once again, I'm controlling the knee now because I want the direct lever of the hip so I can complete my pass. I'm no longer attempting any kind of end of the lever style control because I'm no longer attacking his leg. So if I was here, maybe I went for this kind of cross-body ankle lock. Wonderful technique. I'm not going to teach it. You should totally check out Riley Bodycomb's material on the subject. He does a great job of explaining cross-body ankle lock. But let's say I tried this. I didn't watch Riley's instructional. I kind of messed it up. I'm going to go back to knee control, extend my leg away, come up into base on my knee, on my foot, creating a good post over here so I can drive force into my opponent. If he tries to turn into me, I'm extending this away, and I can even let go of his leg at this point because I've got such control of this far lever to his hip that there's no way he's going to be able to rotate back into me. Let's just turn a little bit more to face the camera here. Something else to be aware of in this situation is that people are going to try to put you back into an outside ashy entanglement from here. So don't just leave your leg kind of floppy dangling here and allow someone to do this. Make sure that there's enough tension here that you're always making contact with the back of the leg. There's no possibility of him pulling your leg through. This leg starts to become weight bearing, my knee starts to come in, I shift into the leg drag position, I can come around and pass and either choose to attack from here or re-entangle the leg in a different configuration. We kind of went over a few different things from here, refer to other volumes for that, but otherwise you're going to end up in side control and look to finish from here. All right, another pretty useful passing transition is going to be the far side knee cut from the 411. Occasionally you're going to get to the 411 from a back step. So let's say I'm knee cutting to this side, and I get to this back step 411 position, let's just turn a little bit more, which we discussed in previous volumes. I can choose to entangle the 411 and sit back, or once I've hooked this leg, especially if I can place my foot on the bottom shin, get myself into base, I can now use my head as what we call a Pez dispenser in the case of not being able to pummel my underhook. It's important that when I'm passing, I want to control opposite corners, right? We call it opposite corner rotational control conceptually. So I'm controlling the levers to Matt's hip, which is going to make it difficult for him to rotate his hip. But I don't control his shoulder right now. So if I attempt to knee cut, I'm really just going to allow him to get behind me. Now, especially if we're dealing with a size disparity like there's between us or a height disparity like there's between us, and I'm going to struggle to get this underhook in, I got to have a solution. I'm going to back up and drive my head underneath of his head so I can complete my knee cut without worrying about his underhook. I'm getting ready. If he does start to pummel his underhook, I'm just getting ready to check his elbow, keep him out of base, turn, flatten him out, and I can finish. Alternately, you're going to find yourself in the 411 where, again, you decide that you want to come up on passing. So I might be here, realize that I'm not being effective in this position. I'm going to rotate my partner and start to sit up. And as I sit up, I'm going to be able to create this kind of solid piece from the top of my knee to my shoulder, which is now going to allow me to pummel my underhook. This is my preferred application of this. Obviously, if I was knee cutting and then backstepped, I'd probably be attacking the legs. But if I attack the legs and I failed, I managed to sit up and I'm going to come into this position here. It's now going to be very difficult for Matt to re-pummel his underhook because I'm presenting him with a wall on this side. Now I'm going to come over, move into my knee cut, collect this elbow, start to pull it up. I can try to circle my foot here, or I can kick it free if I need to, settle down into side control, and try to finish him with some sort of upper body attack. All right, our final passing transition is going to involve the standard Ashie, where we're going to go into a knee over or single underpass. And if I happen to find myself in this style of leg entanglement where I don't like the way things are going, I want to get on top. We've talked about this idea before. Again, if you don't like the way things are going, you should never be a leg lock or bust grappler. You shouldn't be going for a leg lock. Things aren't working out. My partner gets on top, and then I hope I can still win from here. If at any point things are going in a direction that I don't like, I'm going to start to get on top. I'm going to start to pass. So in this case, I'm controlling both legs. Things aren't working out. I'm going to start to technical stand up, and I'm going to drive my shin across to his right, my left, to the side that I'm still controlling his leg on. He's usually going to be hiding this knee now for like a good guard alignment. I'm going to keep driving across, and I'm going to find the underhook on the way. All right? I'm sliding down to his hip. I'm in a knee over or single under position, depending on which pass I'm better at. I can drive back into the single under pass, creating pressure on the lever to his hip. Really important when you're doing this style of passing that you don't bend your head, compromising your posture and get shoved backwards. So we keep our head up. If I was in the knee over and I wanted to move back, I would lean, testing this flexibility, accessing this lever, keeping my elbow closed. I will not reach across because he's going to elbow push me, accessing the lever. I will keep my elbow hidden, rotate, driving through with my posture, keeping my weight heavy on his abdomen to seal the pass. Alternately, let's turn a little bit to this side. If I find myself in this standard Ashie, I build up to base, I drive across, I find the underhook on the way, and I feel like this is not the direction I want to go in. You know, these are not the droids I'm looking for. I'm going to drive my knee through, try to swim my hand in. If he blocks my hand, which good practitioners will, go ahead and block the crossface with both hands here. I'm going to try to swim inside, and I'm going to throw a wide left hook and come through, finishing the pass in this fashion. Let's just go over that transition to standing one more time. I'm controlling both legs. I'm taking my foot off his hip. I'm going into base, controlling this lever in this case, but still covering his foot. I don't want him to be able to easily extract this leg and cause some problems for me. So I'm covering his foot as I come up into my technical stand-up. I can choose to re-entangle, as we've gone over in earlier volumes, or I can start to drive in, finding my underhook on the way. Again, settling down into my pressure position, driving my knee in, throwing the hook and backstepping, or switching to the hip, driving through the lever, pressuring in with my shoulder and my hip, slowly allowing the pressure to do its job and come down into the pass.